This is video number 1 for substitution method. So immediately following this video, go ahead and attempt the you try section of the worksheet. So let's take a look at this. We're going to take a look at the directions on the side. The first thing is you want to notice that both equations have the exact same variable isolated. So if we take a look at this equation, isolated means that it's either x equals with everything on the other side or y equals with everything on the other side. So if you take a look, each one of these has the y isolated. Okay, so that's the first thing I notice. Second step, you want to substitute the expression of one into the other. Okay, so here's the deal. We know that this first equation is identified as y equals 7x plus 10. So what I want to do is I want to find the y in the other equation, and wherever I see that y, I am going to plug in 7x plus 10. So find the y in the other equation, and we're going to substitute in the highlighted, which is 7x plus 10. So looking at the equation that has the highlight in it, but not the box, since that's where we're going to be plugging stuff in. So I'm looking at the second equation. Everywhere I see that highlight, so here's my highlight, I am going to substitute in the 7x plus 10 from the equation. Then I'm just going to continue writing the equation. So drop down the equal sign, drop down the 3x, and drop down the plus 2. At this point, you want to check and make sure that your substitution has been successful. And it's successful if you only have x's or only y's. You don't want a mixture of the variables in here. So now at this point, we're going to go ahead and solve for the variable. I prefer to have my x's on the left-hand side or my variables on the left. So I look at the right-hand side of the equation only. So inside that blue box, anything that has an x on it, I'm going to move to the other side of the equation. Typically, it's through addition or subtraction. So I see the x is a positive 3x. It is being added, so I'm going to subtract 3x. Make sure that you stack it up with like terms. So we want the x's stacked underneath each other. Okay, now let's add straight down. So I know on the left-hand side, 7x minus 3x is 4x. Drop down the plus 10. Drop down the equal sign. And then on the right-hand side, I have a positive 3x minus a 3x. Well, I know that 3x minus 3x is 0. So I'm going to write that as 0. And then I'm going to drop down the plus 2. Okay, from here, if you take a look, I can actually add the 0 and the 2. Everything else gets dropped down. Now notice the x is on the left-hand side. There are no other x's. So now I'm going to look at the left-hand side. I'm going to find any number that's being added or subtracted. So that's going to be the 10. So I'm going to move the 10 to the other side. It's currently a plus 10, so let's subtract the 10. Again, drop down the 4x. I know that 10 minus 10 is 0. You could have put plus 0 or minus 0. On the right-hand side, I know that 2 plus negative 10 is going to give me negative 8. Now the plus 0 isn't necessary, so I can write that as 4x equals negative 8. Last thing I need to do, I'm still trying to get the x by itself. I need to move the 4. Well, the 4 is attached through multiplication. To get rid of multiplication, I'm going to divide on each side. On the left-hand side, I know that 4 divided by 4 is 1. But I still have that x with me, so bring that x. And I divide the right-hand side, that's going to give me negative 2. Now you know that having a 1 in front of a variable is not necessary. So we're going to go ahead and drop it. So that's x is equal to -2. Okay, that's half of the answer. We still need to find the other half of the answer. So go back to the original equations. Choose the one that you prefer. I am going to use the second one only because the numbers are smaller. So I go back to the original and I am going to choose y equals 3x plus 2. Now I'm going to take what I just got and I just solved for x. So I'm going to go to this equation and everywhere I see an x, the thing I solved for, I'm going to plug in what I just found. So I have y equals 3. Okay, this is where my value is going to go, so I'm going to use parentheses to plug it in. And then finish writing the equation. Now, the x that I found was -2, so I'm going to substitute that in. Now from here, you'll notice that the y is already by itself, which is kind of nice. So all I need to do is perform order of operations on the right-hand side. So if we take a look at this, I have 3 times -2. I'm going to do that first. That's going to give me -6. Drop down the plus 2. And then I'm going to combine -6 and +2. So I'm going to get y is equal to 4. Well, I'm not quite done just yet. The solution to a system is the point of intersection. So it's the point that we just found. So we want to make sure that we write it as an ordered pair. Remember, it is an alphabetic order. So we're going to take the x value that we found. That's going to go first. And then we're going to take the y value that we found. That's going to go second. Now we have the final answer here. So the solution is -2, -4. That's our first problem. We have another problem just like this on the next slide. So same idea. Take a look at these equations. You will see that each one of them has the same variable isolated. In this case, it is y. We're going to go through the exact same process. So take one of these equations that is y equals. We're going to highlight what y is equal to. Go to the other equation and highlight the same variable that you just boxed. Now from here, we're going to do our substitution. So start writing this equation. Wherever I see the highlight, though, is where I fill in the information from the other equation. So that's -6x minus 2. Now I'm just going to drop everything else down. And I know my substitution is successful if I only have one variable in here. So not 2 different letters, you only want one letter, which I have, it's the x's. So now I'm going to solve. I prefer to have my x's on the left-hand side, so I'm going to take a look at the right-hand side over here, and anything that has an x on it, I am going to move to the other side. Well, that 4x is negative, which means it's being subtracted. So I'm going to add that 4x to the other side. Add that 4x to the other side. Now, I want to add straight down. Okay, that's going to give me a -2x. Drop down the -2 and the equal sign. Remember that -4x plus 4x is 0, and then drop down the -4. Now on the right-hand side, 0 minus 4 is -4. Let's drop down the -2x minus 2. Okay, now taking a look at the left-hand side. So I'm just trying to get x by itself. Anything that is being added or subtracted, so it doesn't have an x attached to it, that's the thing we're going to move. Rid of this 2. It is a negative 2, so I'm going to add 2 to each side. Drop down the negative 2x. Now, I know that negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Drop down the equal sign, and then negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Now you know it's not necessary for us to have the plus 0. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2x is equal to negative 2. I'm still trying to get the x by itself, so I need to move any number that's attached to it. This is attached through multiplication, so I'm going to divide. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other side. Now, I know that negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. Don't forget that x that's there. And then on the right-hand side, I also have negative 2 divided by negative 2. That's also 1. Well, I don't need the 1 in front of the x, so it looks like I have the first part of my answer. So that's x. Go back to the original equations. Choose the one that you prefer. I think I am going to go ahead and choose the y equals negative 4x minus 4. Keep in mind what you just found. You found x. So wherever we have an x in this equation is where we're going to plug in the value we just located. So y equals negative 4. Okay, this is where my x is located. So I'm going to open a set of parentheses to plug that value in and then finish writing the equation. Look at the value that I found. I found x equals 1. So I'm going to plug it in there. Well, from here, I'm going to obey order of operations. I'm going to need to multiply the negative 4 times positive 1. Well, that's going to give me negative 4. Drop down the minus 4 at the end. Continue combining like terms. This is going to give me negative 8. This is the other part of my answer. Then make sure that you write it as a solution. So the solution to the system is going to be the point of intersection. Remember, we write it in alphabetic order. So the x value we found was 1, and the y value we just found is negative 8.